Morning, I'm Gary Goldman. We're with the Five Star Food Show. This is our second food show, and we are broadcasting live from Three Square Craft Kitchen and Cocktail on Highland Avenue in Needham. And we're so honored to have Joshua Smith from Moody's Deli and Charcuterie in Waltham, Mass. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing? I noticed that it had tremendous growth in your business. You've added a charcuterie. How did you get started in the whole business in the first place?
Well, I mean, I think it went off a long time ago when, I was always very driven and very passionate, so I ended up standing out in a lot of kitchens that I worked in. At one point I was working for the Four Seasons Hotel, and that was probably one of the best jobs I ever had. I worked in Seattle and in Boston, and I worked for the chef Brooke Vasica, who's just an unbelievable individual, and he really, pushed me to be my best, and really gave me that how do you say, confidence to sort of strike out and do my thing, and I did. So I left the Four Seasons, did a few things here and there, but basically took everything I had and bought a little deli on Moody Street in Waltham.
And what year was that you started?
2012 was when I took the plunge.
And what did it look like at that point? The small deli.
Well, so this little 1,200 square foot deli was in really sad shape. It'd been there for about 27 years. It was owned by this guy named Paul Orsino, who's still the landlord and owns the building. Great guy, had a little Italian market, and his heart really wasn't in it anymore. And it was walking distance from my house, so I had this dream of having a little breakfast and lunch place where we can practice charcuterie and basically make sandwiches, sell coffee, breakfast burritos, and it was a real humble sort of adventure. And we were very fortunate that the local community really embraced it, and it took off rather quickly, to be honest with you. I reached out to the USDA. We got the USDA involved. We were the only USDA facility dedicated to small handcrafted meats that had a retail establishment attached to it. So we
this
had
was what, after a year or two that at the deli you decided
2013. It was about 6 months into it.
You realized that there was a niche in the market and you had to pursue it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I was always trying to pursue the meat piece of it and but the business model for doing just a wholesale meat company is not great. It's not. It's a really, you have to have a strong stomach to be able to take the amount of meat. Like a lot of stuff we do takes 3 to 6 months to cure. So to have that sort of capital up front is really hard. It's not only hard to find someone that wants to fund you or help you finance this thing.
So there's the like we talked about earlier. There's the financing end, there's the insurance end, there's the licensing and regulations end. Speak a little bit about that. What's involved in the whole process?
Yeah, it's epic. When I first went with the USDA, they basically said, we know how to spend your money. In other words, they can come through and see something and say that it's not up to code or not up to par, and you have to change it. Whether it's, because everything's up for interpretation. Everything's very gray. Nothing is black and white where you say this wall has to be blue. They say the wall has to be smooth and impervious. Now, everybody can interpret that differently, and what is smooth and impervious, and how is it cleanable and washable, and things like that. So, throughout the whole time that we're working to get this thing up and running, we've had to make several changes, and it cost a lot of money to make these changes and to make the adjustments to do it. But then we learned a lot, and we learned how to do it properly. So the insurance piece is huge too, because the bigger you grow the brand, the more inventory you have, the more you have to sort of insure it, right? I mean,
right.
if you have $250,000 in product hanging, that's pretty serious, like coming from a restaurant where you had anywhere from like a $20,000 to $30,000 inventory, and then jumping to having somewhat of like a wine inventory you'd see at a Capitol Grill, where you have over $200,000 worth of meat that you have to worry about,
Right.
So you're putting things on a generator. When we put the walk-ins in, we bought extra compressors, so everything is redundant. So this way, God forbid something goes wrong, you and I both know it's not going to go wrong on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. It's going to go wrong on a Saturday at midnight when everything's closed and you can't get the stuff. So. Right. So you sort of want to think that thing through, and what that does, that costs money. So you're constantly trying to outthink, it all boils down to the principles of HACCP. We obviously had to write HACCP plans, but, analyzing the hazards and assigning critical control points, like ways that you can control the potential hazards. And so that's how we've sort of modeled the whole business is, sort of hesitantly optimistic type thing. Like, we hope it's going to go well, but when it doesn't go well, this is what we're going to do.